다시 데레 담배는 다자 칼라 욕비더니 저거 참아 다시 데레 데레 다다 갖다 주면 나기디 다다 네 사제 지수 때마 추지수 때마 근데 지수 때마 선때 다음때 사제를 때리 이런 가서 근데만 참아 삼바sem이 터요래 생카래 때문에 요래다 선지 탐시 팽고서 로데 가지는 요래 뒷가루들이 삼바sem이 강에 또 사제 터요래 주간에 삼바세미 대추에 주 탐계가 뭐 주봉제这种造上就这么的你主要是강里도송 삼바세미 바데 사제를 토송데 사제를 가려 삼바세미가 토송데 sempre 탐계를 삼제를 토송데 대디 다 속에 톰나 대게는 바에 대디 그래서 게디와 차르데 폰들 때는 고소서 무슨 짓을 막 동제들이 짓을 막 차들이 때문에 삼바세미 톡하고 사지에 탑을 뛰는 들이 다다 따다만 로도 이제 정대들이 매매 삼바세미에 하다 톡하고 그래 랑 조금 괜찮아 삼바다다는 양망권 정도고 요리 빼놓고 이 라마트르지 삼바세미 바데 야 천망보로 삼바탑들이 사지에 탑을 들을 간다 산총 산동 그걸 탑이는 이제 대리다가 대리더니 소속에 폴더 속에 좀 저거를 되지 비용대
And Ashidele to all my Dharma friends from all over the world. So yesterday we mentioned the recollection of the Buddha, of the Dharma, and of the Sangha through this Buddha's begging bowl. And it is through the Buddha that we as the Sangha can find immeasurable love. And we find that immeasurable love if we cultivate a wish to benefit all sentient beings. And if we always have this wish. And the Dharma is nothing else but that. The Dharma is immeasurable love. It is that the 84,000 Dharma teachings have their root in bodhicitta, or immeasurable love. And the Buddha was the one who gave us the method to cultivate immeasurable love. And whoever has it is a Sangha. So that is what we remember when we see such a begging bowl. We remember the three jewels on the ultimate level. Generally speaking, it is difficult for us to cultivate immeasurable love. So the Buddha gave us skillful methods to cultivate it, starting with the path of the four thoughts that turn the mind, and then gradually developing immeasurable love. And that is unlike our ordinary love. For example, the love that we might have for our friends. We have that now momentarily, but in the future that might change. Immeasurable love is the kind of love that you cannot lose, and you will always have it for all future lifetimes to come. And for example, the Bodhisattva vow that we have received yesterday is a method for keeping our bodhicitta. That is why during the vow we said, Tapi no. So anyone, for this reason, can and should hold such a Buddha's begging bowl. So these are the benefits of that.
빨리 지지바로 살살로서 사자집에 책은 걸었더니 야가께도 마음을 아반테 야지 목결에서 빨리 지지바로 상살로데 하정 소낭 전부도 센터에 소낭들이 사제적 고방 때려서 내 통화들이 샘나가 다와 차는데 제기다 누가 갈다 싶지 탐세를 피마되어라 이거 그래서 대강을 샘래지 이 샘고 내로 또 들이게래 따뜻하니 샘고 내로 되도 내로 돌아대 들이다 죽은 시상받게 내로 되는 지대서 보고 사제들 다 모든 토고야 그래야지 말이지 랑게 샘대 습지는 사제에서 말이 대라더니다 랑게 샘대 사제 임바 하고요 말이 그다음 뭐는 말이 이거 또 난거 사제게 내 토부 타로 가리 랑게 샘의 용서 더데 쭉 잡기도 맞춘 쭉 랑게 샘장마지 랑게 샘장마지 랑게 샘장마지 사제를 송요 그당 쉬어이나 이래 대회는 되니 랑게 샘는데 와르더니 다다 라니 속도면 송하더니 네 다다 다다 나와 탐제랑 샘이 돌을 좀 다다 또 남고 대마서 책제마도 요매 이 이제네 들이 때로 무르주나 다른 용용주나 이 전대된 기분 보지 탐제 전도서 거래 야와다 되지 지체메 봐도 쭉 자체야 요매 다른 뒤뒤드시는 되니 라니 속도면은 좀 받았더니 대능이 내가 생각도 동동시오이.
And today I will give an introduction to the ultimate bodhicitta. And the ultimate bodhicitta is Mahamudra. In the very beginning of the Ganges Mahamudra, it says, homage to glorious co-emergence. And that is the beginning of the essential instructions on Mahamudra, or the Mahamudra Upadesha in Sanskrit. So this glory, this co-emergent glory, that refers to a great inexhaustible merit. And this great inexhaustible merit is the state of enlightenment, when the mind has become like space. And then one accomplishes the benefit of all sentient beings naturally. So when one realizes the nature of one's own mind, one benefits beings naturally. Thigden Sumgön also said that the Buddha only taught the fundamental nature of all phenomena. You might think that the Buddha is someone far away, but he is not. The Buddha is within your own mind. All beings are actually Buddhas. It is just that we have not recognized that our own mind is the Buddha. This is, for example, taught in the Samantabhadra prayer. So the Buddha gave us a method to realize this. The Buddha said, completely tame your own mind. We learned that also in the context of the refuge vow. This means that we have to purify our own mind. And when our own mind is purified, this is the Buddha. And then in order to tame one's own mind, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, in one verse that teaches on the ultimate truth, appearances are one's own mind. From the beginning, mind's nature is free from the extremes of elaboration. Knowing this, not to engage the mind in subject-object duality is the Bodhisattva's practice. So that is the verse in just 4 lines that teaches the ultimate truth. And I'm going to give some introduction to that, but generally you receive instructions from Garchen Rinpoche, and you also hear teachings from His Holiness Dalai Lama and so on continuously. But so on the basis of this verse here, I'm going to give just a brief outline, a brief introduction to the mind.
대략이 루반 잡지만이 내성 말이 장 인지 소설로 똑바로 까와는 게 셈. 야, 그렇지.
I picked the wrong verse. So there's this one verse that comes from the 7 verses of supplication to Tara for protection, and it says, "It is difficult to understand our own mind is Buddha's mind. Seeing the nature of mind, but not familiarizing with it through practice, we are lost in unwholesome worldly activities. I supplicate Mother Tara of perfect mindfulness, please protect us."
똑바로 까와는 게 셈지는 셈그대로 통는 콘대가 주탐지 나와 셈도 타지 셈지 동버 타지 좀 취지 자와 마주 셈이 자와 주성 대외 사제 좀 되는 셈이 오는들 답한 콘대 주사로마다 땅땅 좋다 요 말이지 수가 세상들이 랑 기뻐서마다 셈이 세상 셈 군내로 된 거는 또나 셈들이 탑이다 잡아야 돼. 오 셈들 똑바로 까서 동가래. 요 양은 요대 타고 양은 외대 타제 거래. 요대 타줘야 요 말이지. 남카나기 토야 요 말이지. 대외 똑가래. 매일 다 미덕지 또 많이 같이 또 많이 가야 요 말이지. 좀 제가 가서 요 말이지. 다또 요 말이지. 오 다들 말아 다도 통로 이거 때문에 내가 노화를 좀 이거 좀 성성도 좀 이거 정이 거요. 정말 저도 요래지. 무슨 통치도 요래지. 다 요제는 뭐 매제는 뭐 저지. 다 최근에 놓고 다 통통이고 말이지. 얘네들이 다 당보때 통부터 역강나 토를 나한테는 토르지 나이즈마디 니 도마디니 나오 올려마디니 벨 랩하르트니나 랩하르트고 고도파르레지 야 랩트르트가 고도파르레지 这个파르트는 这个大的这个意这个样大的고소랑게 다데 이 다지 이 차네 이리들 샘들다 그막 토마토는 마르 봐서 세부대로 마도르더니 다지니 다다 세속 차데 되게 니디 샤롱이요리 대외 담보 나데 요미 딱게 당들이 다데 가는 문제 돼서 로바 가지고 양 라마들 접히기는 다 당호 지하게 다데 기쇼지 다데 그거서 다데 그거서 근데 님지 차트들이 다들 가서 다들 쏘 잘 맞아버려 잘 맞아 들이 저게 달래도 나 토성이도 나 토만 성을 못해 나뭐 초랑 내가 가래시리요 너를 못을 치 시시대상 토성이지 다다비가 대다 내고요리 가지를 세 진담모도 때고요리들이 나 죽으셔 용들이 도면 내 라트 땅나 가와도 토고요 뭐 토야요 말이 토비야 미베는 드리다 세문으로 또 가와래지 대외는 드리다 요파만이 잡는데 맞아 미파만이 코데코지에서 코데지는 잡다버려 속놀이 생부대로 또나 코데 니가 되다 랑 생부제도 배강은 저는 뭐 가바지에서 가바지로는 새 가바는데 다 대만 보지 그래야지 당 로 메르 가봐서 뭐지 다 요거는 되죠 말이고 랑지가 도면 미디다 로그라가 잡을는 것도 다 로시 그래서 로드 셈이 세배 로 당당 셈이 뭐죠 말다 다 셈도 요거 있지요 다들 베들이 통과와 똑바로 까와라는 셈인데 내는 통모서 좀 동모서 돼 다다 용미 이감에 베들이 또 무슨 바동대
So in the 7 verses, it says it's difficult to realize one's own mind. In order to realize one's own mind, one first must realize that all appearances are one's own mind, and then that mind itself is empty. The mind is the root of all phenomena in samsara and nirvana. And that is why the Buddha had said, completely tame your own mind. If you do not look inward but project outward and try to understand all the different phenomena of samsara and nirvana, there is no end to it. Look inward and see your own mind, because it's that mind that has created all these endless manifestations. And that mind is beyond the 4 extremes. Meaning that it can neither said to be existing nor can it said to be non-existing. And this is precisely why it is so difficult to realize the nature of the mind. We cannot say it's there, it exists, it's here, because it's like space, and we can't get space. It's not an object. But then at the same time, we can't say it doesn't exist, because there still are all these different manifestations of samsara and nirvana. Some people, they deny any existence. They say everything is empty, so there is no karma, there is no past and future lives, and so on. But they also have not realized a reality. Because we still grasp at a self that doesn't actually exist, we create the 6 realms of samsara naturally. For example, the 3 lower realms naturally appear. And they're there, they're established, we can see them. But they do not inherently exist. So the nature of the mind is like this. We cannot say it exists nor that it doesn't exist. We cannot see it as a substantial thing. And so the main cause, the main reason why it is so difficult for us to realize, to see our true nature, is because it is obscured by this belief in the existence of a self. Because there is self-grasping, this thought of me, I exist. For example, if you have 2 people on 2 mountains, And on the one side, when we look over there to the other mountain, we think that, oh, they're over there. I'm here and they're over there. But this is exactly what those people over there are thinking. They think, I'm here and they're over there. And so this is how the perception of self and other happens. We see ourselves, so that's me, and those over there are others. But those others don't see themselves as others. They see themselves as the self and see you as the other. And so this is how this perception of self and other arises. It comes from the ignorant mind that is unable to see itself. It sees its true nature. And not seeing your true nature leads to the illusion of this existence of self and other. And this leads to the perception of different bodies that we then perceive as separate. So when we analyze this, is there a self or is there not a self? There's one story about that. An old Drupa Kagyu disciple once asked their Lama for pointing out the nature of mind instructions. And then that Lama told him, first of all, bring me yourself. And so then he went home, tried to find that self, and day and night he was looking and looking for that self, but he couldn't find it at all. So he came back in the morning, and then that Lama asked him, so do you have it? And then the disciple says, no, Rinpoche, I couldn't find it at all. And then the Lama said, so what are you doing here then? And then he said, well, I'm here to receive Dharma teachings. So here it is. Here is that self. He found it. It arises like this, momentarily. A certain condition, a temporary condition, causes it to arise. This person couldn't find the self, but when asked what he's doing here, he says, I'm here to receive Dharma teachings. So here is the I, but then where is it really? You can't really find it. And so because of this dilemma, it is very difficult to realize the nature of the mind. It is said that it cannot said to be existing. Not even the Buddhas have seen it. But you also cannot say that it doesn't exist because it is the very basis, the foundation of samsara and nirvana. This mind creates all of samsara and nirvana. To give one example, for example, it is like a phone, like a hand phone. There are many different phones in the world. And even though they're all different, they're all powered by the same electricity. And only if you have electricity can you use those phones. If they're not powered by electricity, you can't do anything with them. So this electricity exists naturally. You can't find it really, you can't hold it, but you can channel it so that it becomes useful. So you can't say it doesn't exist just because you can't hold it, because electricity is what really keeps the world moving. It powers all of our devices. So it's a strange thing like that with the nature of the mind. There's a connection between the outer electricity and the inner mind. They're quite similar. So it's very difficult to realize the nature of the mind because we can neither say that it exists nor that it doesn't exist.
홍수로 생고는 남카다고 되라 다 다진임도 데르디 다진이 매발 인지네 이 데르디 차당차고 지레도지 레도데 차당을 데르디 샘들이 되니 저놈 잡았다 사답들 가고 저러죠 샘들이 비 좁아 차도 되게 세구대로 무시배 동물들 이 홍로 때려 샘람종 이미 이시라 하더니 샘들 람종을 했어 람종을 했어 이요 말이지. 될 이시대로 남시대 이시가래들이 통을 이시래. 이시면 가래. 샘디 얘니 샘은 남카니 얘네 요래. 얘네 남카 얘네 요바래. 요로 남카 가래는 저것도 주요 말이다. 세우라고 이미 오 예대 유부 예시사대 이 세분 내록들랑 통고서는 이명하고서는 이 대그때 세분 맞잡상 콘데이가 직자요 말이 답과 상제가 살아 세분 잡대 상제 세분 짜마 차서는 그리고서 저거 맥저고 이제 저 통고 민나서 저요 들마다 붙여서 똑바로 잡동을 봐서 통무지들 투자를 그런데 마차로 요래 별로 안 담라서 봤더니 잡은 척고 차로 그래 대들랑 가지 대 건서 좀 보나는 대니를 이렇게 상제 대 말을 상징고 이제 세배대로 속을 걸어서 상제 되었다고 요래 대 말을 대습진 거는 저는 들이 대인 통 타로 가면 정난 거고 요래 정난 막거리들이 이제 뭐대 초발 이정들이 초와 도고를 이정들이 세대상은 소도요 말 대외를 되는 거 가는 거로도 남전이 정스 오늘 뭐다 돈도 냠대 자를 뭐다 돈도 냠대 자는 저 돈도 동이 가려도 초를 내와 가려도 삼로 상말 오다 대레게 제발이 대레레 돌이오리스 레게 제발이 pero 독저지 내가 야 맞지 내가 요 독저지 동에 남아나도 가니 다 주세는 시당도 왜 오 시당 대장자가 왕절성 셈때 다 독저도 바란다고 차로요 세속을 시당을 하는 데로 차로요 들 로아를 도 셈이 차요 그런 로아를 도 셈이요 다 봐서 미나 대니를 사제들 오 셈코그 내로 또래 셈코그 내로 때는 다 담보 있으면 받아 하고 성사는 니 매워 하고 때 셈때 니 문독대 연능 셈코랑 땅도 이가 돼 바로 세대 땅도 세고도 돼 하고서 때때다 람들 로도 남자니 고정 같은 게 빠져 야 공고들 쳐를 그래서 뭐더라 셈싸마 장장도야리 현내상도 시거래 오 세대 루루지 그래 들티네 남도 가리가 파이줘데 남도 레사고 요르벨 계단은 좀 담마세 머리 저는 들이베 보다 정말 저를 세비 중단이 어디냐 하고서는 들이티는 랑도를 들고서 레좀 레시 받아 뛰는 판에 들이다 세랑도 이미 이스도 봐봐야지 니지 다 빠지발 또 다지 딱 맞게고 그래 들이다 다 상마서 이제 다 상첩sem 장진 이비로 가래는 세트 담아서라고 그랬어. 단디가 잡으치게 되는 예제에서는 다다도 이가 연거를 너도 차로 그러지. 너는 세트 너도 차 맞죠 없이. 대송을 들이다 레주를 뛰는 파묘래. 얘기들이 가장 잡도면서 내과지 않마다 이게 아프던 속버지. 오, 내과지는 단디 조금씩을 내 참아게 먹기가 차옹스. 오, 인피로 들이다 독산지 인피sem을 속을라니 수비면 대주가 하고서 오, 다 세배대로 샘장만 걸고 딱 걸고 다 삼세고도 오, 조용은 초대 장롱 차서고도 조매를 초대 장롱 차도 그러고 장롱 마차리 초대기 제금 담지 베이기도 장롱 강행 베이기도 다 대주 샘지과를 대려 하고 오, 고하게 되는 거 대려고 그래야지.
So when we speak about seeing the nature of the mind, what we first see is this self, but there is a clear awareness that sees that. And so that is the mind to see. For as long as we have not realized the nature of mind, our mind is called the consciousness that is projected outward and discerns external objects. When you face inward and see the nature of the mind, it is like space. And within space, there is no self and no other. So we believe in the reality of dualistic existence that doesn't actually exist. And as a result of such dualistic grasping, we develop thoughts of attachment and anger or hatred. The subtle counterparts to attachment and hatred are hope and fear. So when we develop these thoughts, the mind that is like pure water to begin with becomes polluted. For example, when you pour a tsampa flour and salt and all kinds of things into the water, it becomes thicker and thicker, it becomes muddy. And so that is why, because the mind has become muddied, we are unable to see our true nature. Also in the Tara prayer, it says, due to the habit of dualistic grasping at the mind that is self-arisen non-dual wisdom, we are bound no matter what we do. So it is grasping at the mind that is actually self-arisen non-dual wisdom. So when the mind is projected outward and dualistic, it is called the consciousness. But when you see the nature of this consciousness, it is called primordial wisdom. And primordial wisdom is given this name because it has been there since beginningless primordial times, and wisdom because it is all-knowing. It is a primordial awareness that is there, but we can't say it exists as we cannot point our finger at it. But it has been there since primordial times. And when you see this mind, the experience is one of all pervasiveness. This mind pervades all of samsara and nirvana. For example, it pervades all the pure lands of the Buddhas and all the realms of samsara. So when you see it, then the water becomes refined again. When the water becomes very clear, you can use it as eye drops, or you can drink it, you can make medicine out of it. When water is polluted, for example, toilet water, you can't use it for anything. You can't drink it, or it becomes muddied water, or like concrete that has become all solid because too much mud has been mixed with it. In the Samantabhadra prayer, it says, when you recognize it, you are a Buddha. Not recognizing it, you are a sentient being wandering in samsara. Whoever sees the nature of their mind sees the Buddha. But because sentient beings are ignorant, they do not see their mind, they wander in samsara. And in the beginning, in order to make them look at their mind, we first need to instill some fear in them. Because if they're not a little bit afraid, then they will not worry about anything, and they will just be distracted by the sense pleasures of the six sense perceptions, and they will have no wish, they will have no intention to purify their mind. That is why we start the path with those 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And then, for example, we look at humans and animals together. And we wonder, like, why is it that animals suffer so much and you experience much more happiness? That is because of karma, cause and effect. For example, if I have a poisonous snake here and myself, when I look at that snake suffers. And why does the snake suffer? Look at your own mind. Is there anger in your own mind? If there is anger in your own mind, you do actually possess the cause of being born as such a snake or a scorpion. The 6 realms of samsara are a creation of the mind. And when the mind becomes purified and matures, it ripens into Buddhahood. So the reason why we have not realized the nature of the mind is because we see a dualistic existence. So therefore, in order to realize the nature of the mind, the first thing we need to understand is that there is no duality. So first we need to separate the clean water from the dirty water. We must understand this point. And this is called the path. And so the path begins with those 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And then we practice meditation, the 4 applications of mindfulness. And then we go on to practice shamatha and vipassana in order to purify our mind. When we practice shamatha, for instance, first of all, the mind becomes tranquil, it becomes relaxed. We let all of our thinking be, and the mind calms down that way. Otherwise, if we allow those negative thoughts to be there, what happens is, for example, if you get very angry, then you might start fighting with someone, and even you might kill someone. People even kill their children and their husband and wife. So this is what happens when we become carried away by the afflictions. So when we learn about karma, then we know what to do and what not to do. And so this habit of dualistic grasping at the non-dual mind, the mind that is actually non-dual, happens due to the perception of a self. So that is really what we need to purify. And in order to purify this perception of a self, we cultivate bodhicitta. And bodhicitta, the Tibetan, that is Changchup Sem, and Changchup, so Changchup means enlightenment, so the mind of enlightenment. And Chang, the first syllable, means to clear the mind, purify the mind through the altruistic mind. And then the self-grasping is cleared away. Otherwise, even if we practice the Dharma, if there is self-grasping, we might still think, I did this and I did that. And in this way, we still keep polluting, defiling our own mind. And when we do so, the mind becomes more and more solidified. It's like we're pouring more and more earth into the water, so it becomes really muddy. So when we understand karma and know what to do and not to do, that is the first way for us to not allow the mind to become so solidified. The other day during the refuge vow, we learned, do not commit any wrong, perfectly practice virtue. So what is wrong? Wrong mainly is the self-grasping mind. With a self-grasping mind, we commit all kinds of non-virtuous actions. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, again, it says, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. If you understand that, you know that in order to purify my mind, what do I need? I need to have loving kindness. Loving kindness is like the heat that will melt the ice block. Ice is actually water, but for as long as it remains ice, it can't really benefit anything. The moment you melt the ice and it becomes water, you can water plants with it and so on. It benefits the environment. And it's very similar with the mind. So that's the first understanding to be gained.
다 나연 좀 내게 니지요 맞아서 다 미카와 강는 것을 참 제가 셈다 라고 셈이 셈시 받는 내용도 와서 다 저기지 대도 그러 세고 내용도 다 거리 오 세고 내용 나와 잡아 될 때는 나와 잡아 될 가리 때는 나와 잡아 딱 가리치고 되게 참 싫어요 나 간도 나 저도 말이 나 말이 뭐래 가요 말이 딱 나 찍자요 말이 나 매빠랑 나인데 받아 생겼던 저거 못들이 쪼고서 오 뒤들 고아가 들이 딱 핀치지 다 니 셈지지 말이야 다 이제 하고서 다들 이 차들이 차당 모두 될 우거는 상전에 그래서 남이 열지 남들 셈일 선남은 이제 온적인 감독을 나이는 뭐가 나는 아리자카 이런 낭낭데 나이 보다 좀 총총 나나나 이 잡은데 나디 눈치 매벌려 그래 되게 저도 뒤박 차 터버림지 대성 오 나도 주말에 자트는 되제리스 다도 제일은 다 말이 demba 말이지 demba 매월 나 demba 이제 노송스 대하만 어떻게 좀 가래요 이 박차 문에를 상들이 저거 남상들 도비지나 저기 좀더 조자장지는 남상 코로란 거들이 이와카가 차거리 별로 마디도 제요 남도 지어데 남도리 나니 말도 하고 남도 쳐달라별 메이도 그래 집에 용띠데 중상제 박차요 저거 용을 내로 하성아 가들 내로 장성아 야 그 똑바로 말을 실내데 셉도 남도 탐지도 잡아가면 남도 직접 매버 셈도 가서 다 통지 시바도 싸고요 그래 시바들이 코디 니가 시바들이 직발이 시바들 may she also take the army to this based on Takari. The young Missy loved the class of the Torabak. When you say when all number, she can't some matter you, me, never give my mom will do master. Ranga say Shibaterata, Shibate, Hignoris, Shibate, Hensula Carri, Sim Sow was Sim Sow Tawahako Yore, Nam To Yumi Tamahako Yore. How can I deal more the Tomba? Oh, that the chance loved it. That like you, Mary. Yammer, you the sour look the sour card of your Mary. Yammer, Tomba, you can't look the lady gave me and got a daughter to charm with not also really. Oh, that you come up to her. That's not something you made. That's simple. So I love it. Love it to the serious to the thing with the hack on. This is oh, there is. Rangalong to you. Oh, simple look there somehow. Some got a daji with a yichi of watch. That daji in the house. Then I knew Dr. June Carriori. That you were career. They lay sound, lady meaning the great of young. There it is. Not all this upwards, not all the half water, not all the subject. She bought a star data lady. That's not something with young Tina. Dandy Juniors on the city, not all trouble. Think of that same thing, Gomjana. Not all trouble the maid or the baker, the cheddar love the maid or is. Just love your race, love the conscious. Oh, Semo, my children, love the child, just child with Tonya. Didn't call out the little daughter of child or is. They were the same now, don't you mean? She listed the Baba charge. Just as you did a canyon and will not understand where there was a day won't you lower to be dead. Lower to my life worker, she did the tower door. Suddenly you would not to throw the ship over there. Chadang to our tower, the owner, the lake about labor generated for child over Mary. The chilly young detail, how you may have the hack or quarter in the corner. The new market, the top of dinner. Now the doesn't want. Don't come the Jolam just say the longer said the looked at shade. Tracy is for it. That Tracy, you may be Tracy. You may be Tracy. That you say me about things. Did you say me, Mamma, the Chalon Chinese yours? Like Chakatel, 37 they looked all. Totally comparable or strongly, 7 they looked at Nibel, hard calling. That is Congo, that Congo. There is that the subject of the doctrine and so on. The more on told the trouble less hours. How got to get the shop the course of it. Touch told the Juba to Conde your service you hackers. Oh, Conde your service you don't so many 70 Saudi, 70 Juba. The more on told the Juba, touch told the Juba. Then told the Juba. Oh, that you did you lump some here, Parmi the government, not talk with the much about the doctor told you, then just have read the Tatragori. Tamilari Batam, go to your guardian, then told the Java, the digital is for them that are now at the December. Don't account the children just each other. This is the pieces or it, they be shared. This is buy you, buy you think of the J. So, draw Sadhana. Language by you, the Payu, you think of the J. Payu, Magical, what they come to change, they come to Savachena, you know, just around here, Pantry, immediately get the tube of chocolate child, dick around here at the tassel. Ramji, but the Luna is a people over it. No one Ramji, Pang over it. They know what they told me, come look the chocolate at the come to go your race.
So the habit of dualistic grasping at the mind that is self-arisen non-dual wisdom. So first, we need to understand that the mind is non-dual, just like space. For example, if you have two holes like this, you have two empty spaces. Then when you open them up, they become one space. There's no difference between the emptiness contained in that space. So because we grasp at the reality of a self, there's a perception of a duality. But someone who has realized that the nature of the mind. For example, if they sit in this room here filled with people, even though this room is filled with people, they still recognize that our mind is one. We are not separate. But because we are ignorant, we think that there is a self, we don't see that, we don't recognize that. So we think that there is this I, but where actually is it really? Is this I my body? Am I the body? You're not the body will be lost. So you can't find the I. You are just grasping at an I that doesn't really exist. And this is where the confusion of sentient beings begins. So that is the first understanding to gain, that our mind has a single basis, a single ground. When we do not understand that, when we see things in a dualistic way, we will develop thoughts of attachment and anger. And we will believe in the true existence of whatever appears to us. There is this separation between the outer appearing objects and the inner grasping mind. For example, an outer appearing object is this country that we live in. So we perceive this as this is my country, this is America, and then smaller than that, this is my family, this is my children, this is my husband, my wife, this is my cup, my this, my that. So in this way, this I becomes solidified. Continuously, this thought of I, mine, arises. And this is how the habitual tendency, this karmic imprint, becomes stronger and thicker continuously. So the I is just a mental fabrication. And whatever is a fabrication is compounded. And whatever is compounded is impermanent by nature. And therefore does not inherently exist. So when you understand that, you realize that actually I'm just grasping at an I that doesn't really exist. So what creates these habitual tendencies, these karmic imprints, is our belief in the true existence. And this, for example, destroys friendships. When there are two friends who just see each other's fault and they get really angry at each other, they will separate. It is also a thought in the mind. So recognize non-duality. For example, in an ocean, the ocean water is non-dual, but still waves appear on the ocean. But the waves on the ocean don't harm or affect the ocean in any way. And so similarly, thoughts may arise, but they do not need to affect you or create a karmic imprint in your mind. So when you look at the nature of the mind, for example, when you practice shamatha, calm abiding, first of all, we develop a thought-free mind, where there is no thinking at all. And how is that mind that has no thoughts at all? There is just clear awareness. And that is it. That is what we need to see, that clear awareness that always remains, regardless of the presence or absence of thoughts. And this awareness is the same throughout samsara and nirvana. So when something appears, you may feel that I recognize this, I see this. So now you just need to get rid of this I here and then just have the recognize part. Recognizing, seeing. Tilopa said, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature. So do not think about anything at all. Do not entertain the past. Do not anticipate the future. Look at the present moment of your mind. And everything, all these thoughts will naturally collapse. But what always remains is clear awareness. And this clear awareness knows everything. It recognizes and sees all the thoughts that arise. And the nature of this clear awareness is emptiness. So once you have seen that and somebody asks you, so how is it? Tell me how it is. You can't really put it into words. There is something there, it's clear, but you can't really say that it's there, that it exists, an existing thing. It's not a substantial thing, a material thing. But then you also can't say that it doesn't exist. You also can't say there's nothing there, because there is a clear knowing there. So you simply cannot put it into words. Therefore, it is called inexpressible, beyond words and thoughts. So one can neither say that it exists nor that it doesn't exist. It's just something that you can know for yourself. An experience you have to gain yourself. And this experience can be gained. And once you have gained this experience of your own non-dual space-like nature, then you should trust in it. If you don't, and often the fault that happens is that, again, afflictive emotions arise and you accumulate karma. And then this karma will ripen, and as a result, you will experience suffering in this life and in future lives. So you have to be careful when it comes to these thoughts in the mind. Recognize these thoughts with clear awareness and don't act out on these thoughts. Reflect on the qualities of bodhicitta and the faults of self-grasping. And the moment a thought arises in your mind, meditate and experience how it subsides just like a wave on water. And when the thought subsides, there is no feeling left behind. It was here this moment, the next moment it is gone, and there is no feeling left behind. There's just clear awareness. So this is how it is when you recognize the nature of the mind. When you do not recognize the nature of the mind, then the mind remains like an ice block, and then if you come into conflict with others, it is just like two ice blocks bumping into each other. And this creates the suffering of the 6 realms of samsara. This verse here teaches that we should recognize our own non-dual awareness. The Buddha also said, beings are only obscured by adventitious stains. So it is not our true nature to be dualistic. The main practice to do in the beginning is to practice calm abiding, where all thoughts dissipate, all these feelings go away. First, all these coarse, afflictive emotions, and then the subtle thoughts will calm down. And when they come down, you will not act on them, and then you will not create habitual tendencies or karmic imprints. So that's why it's very important to, first of all, understand this. First, you need to understand non-duality. And then next, you need to experience this understanding. In the 37 practices, it says at the end, in brief, in whatever you do, always sustain mindfulness. Be mindful in whatever you do. Always continuously sustain mindfulness of non-duality. And then the mind cannot freeze into an ice block. So whenever these habitual tendencies come up, meditate and recognize non-duality. So experience means that you need to practice, you need to habituate to your understanding of non-duality. In the Dzogchen teachings, there's a teachings called the 3 words that strike the vital point. And the first one is, first you have to decide upon you have to recognize your own true nature. It is said that this first step is actually quite easy. We can recognize our own true nature. Those who possess some wisdom can recognize their own true nature. Then the second point is you have to decide upon this nature only. So here, in a second step, after you have recognized, you have to decide or kind of gain certainty in that this mind itself creates all of samsara and nirvana. And this mind is the mind of all sentient beings and all the Buddhas. So these first 2 steps are actually said to be still easy. What is more difficult is the third statement, and that is you have to gain confidence in the dissolution of thoughts. And so that is more difficult. We can easily recognize our true nature. We can decide that this is it, but it's very difficult to habituate to it. So this is also kind of links to the verse here in the Tara prayer. We see our nature, but we don't habituate it. So habituation means that day and night continuously we habituate our understanding of the nature of mind. We do not allow these thoughts to remain within our mind. And then we recognize them and they are rendered powerless. So whether or not you have actually attained such this confidence, the third step, is you can see for yourself by seeing whether or not these thoughts affect you in any way. For example, great masters like Milarepa, they have perfected this assurance in the dissolution of thoughts. So in brief, it comes all down to mindfulness. In the 37 practices, in the end, it says, in brief, whatever you do, always be mindful. And with mindfulness, accomplish the benefit of others. It is also said that mindfulness is the foundation of all good qualities. This is taught in the Vinaya teachings of the Pratimoksha. If you have mindfulness, even if you engage in a mundane activity, whether you engage in a Dharma team, if you have mindfulness, the mind will remain pure naturally. It is said if you're mindful, the 10 virtuous actions will happen naturally, and the 10 non-virtuous actions will naturally become purified. So also if we are mindful, we will naturally not cause any harm towards others, and we will naturally accomplish others' benefit. And so in order to accomplish that, meditation is something that needs to be habituated or trained in.
sem sao the daji nimewa, daji nime sem tong da de gongore. De gongba de da the sama namjori yeso. Tekeki yongame ba, dang nimtiga yongame ba. Dra de yongame de nam to ba cha yo to ma le. Nam to pa da ro yo le, nam to pa cha chi yo dra de. Dri ro de de, dri mre ko de yo ta chi le sa le dri sen na ka ta ti bo cha ma le. Dri go me ji ka ru go ma le, te ma to go me ma to pa de te chi bo ma le go de tudo chego te ma je te yo yo ma le. Dri sa wa nge yo ma de. Dri ta le pa cha de dong yo go yo le. Dri di do ma che di ne ma de yo ma. De te do me so ma le. Dri te le je te dang chi bo bo che so bo ta ja wa tam che jun che be ba chi je ta chi ma. Ga che ko na pi ge te ko che te so do do chi de ko de la ni so ji men de. Te yang se go to le de. Se go to le de ne de ji shi de. Ji shi de ke de nam to shik to do ma ti de de go ma nya myong ta de wa so ma la le be ta lu ne de ta ta chu le rang rang ta chu o de le ta sa ja chu ha ko de ka le go nya mi ji o ti ri de ta chu ya yo le de ne yo le ti ri o de nga me ba sa tong de la tong ta wa ti ri ji so sa go ru bo ji go so nga tra be de o se ne lu ha ko so de ta so me ba ta wa 대 샤야를 대 소소를 되면 양용 샤용 예를 들어서 대어도 대대라고 제시 조제 대 가고 얼마도 대회들이 때라면 또 노도로 쉬잖아 다들 사치형 때리 사치들은 다지니 지요 말이지 다지니면 세든 남갔다고 잡다고요 그래 사와도 또 많이 사자치고 사와도 또 많이 야치고들 셈 남간다고 차송시 멘세 족치들은 오, 콜데가 취탑제 되는 마도와요 말이 되는 조과래지. 사제 취탑제 되는 조과래지. 콜데가 되는 조송 세븐내로 되는 조송 족시지. 롱라를 봐 오마지. 오마지. 오, 다티 세븐 띠앙 셈 띠도 마삼 셈사 오, 띠도를 대들 다 대들은 요 노트요 말이. 들 용띠 가려요들이 신남도 초박가래 남도 색탁고요. 저도 랍들 메로 세배들 잡줄 랍들 메로 그래. 들이 남절바들 랑 세미 남마데 토토데 랑 세미 남마 상마데 하고 땅아티도 되게 들이 남절바 담ben다 저거요래 들이 주로 넘버 돌들는지라 데랑 따와라 센터 주고요 대통령이 들이 따다 대사 동네 배행도 들이 다다도만 되게 배결이 세미 제셔베바 하고 거래 나 로마지가 남당 제리 남카디 지설 가려서 그래서 남당에서도 남까지 요 말이 타고 요 말이 가시 지석을 랑도 못하지 남까지 지해야 되려고 그래. 대그래를 랑 세번 내로 또서 콘데지가 지석대 세번 내로 되는 콘데지가 맞이 봐요 말이. 대사로 싸우는 들이 저들이 다 먹을 되고서 다 랑 소소를 아마 계시 서이라디 꼭 연등 송상지 통상지 이 샘대 예수베비 시에서 들이들이 들이들이 대신들이 무버데 가지고 되는 맥주 촉탑나 들이 은혜 주변 뭐지요 그래 가지고 대를 다 대지리 들이대 라마다랑 진사지도 제착해요 그래 대하자 개체 보여래 지들이.
And so in the one of the verses then it says so we do not habituate it, but remain lost in negative activities. So that is when we are only concerned about ourselves and this life. Then the afflictive emotions just stay in our mind, and when they stay in our mind, the karmic imprints caused by these afflictions will naturally manifest as our experiences of various kinds of suffering in this life. The root of all suffering in the world are the afflictive emotions in sentient beings. It is said, if you wish to know what you did in the past life, look at your present body. If you wish to know where you will go in the next life, look at your present actions. So when we think about karma, thinking about karma, then we supplicate to Tara, mindful Mother Goddess, please protect us who are lost in negative activities. This is similar to this verse in the 37 practices. And so this mindfulness, this mother of mindfulness, that is Tara, your own pure, clear mind, your own clear mindfulness, that is Tara. And Tara is always inseparable from yourself. So it says in the end of the next verse, Goddess of non-dual mind, please protect us. She's non-dual from our own mind. She is our own clear mindfulness, our clear awareness. When you recognize the view, you know that self and other do not exist. And this knowing awareness, that is this clear awareness, the nature of your mind that we need to recognize. And that needs to be habituated after we have recognized it. And this mind is the ultimate actual Tara. Tara is the mother of all Buddhas. Tara is the mother of all Buddhas, the mind of all Buddhas. She is called the great Dharmakaya mother. And when you understand that, you see that she's Dharmakaya. You see she is your own mind. She's also said to be the mother of the enlightened activity of all the Buddhas. She is the perfection of wisdom, and in this way has attained enlightenment. Whereas we, samsaric sentient beings, have not recognized our true nature, the perfection of wisdom. So we still wander in samsara suffering. Because we accumulate karma with the afflictive emotions, we wander in the 6 realms of samsara. But even though we suffer in samsara, this wandering in samsara actually also purifies our negative karma, which is necessary. It is just like it's necessary to wash your clothing or to go to a hospital when you're sick. It is a good thing. We need to purify our negativities in order to attain enlightenment. If we don't purify them, we cannot attain enlightenment. So in that sense, it's a good thing, because if we do not purify them, we will stay in samsara for a very long time. So this goddess of non-dual mind is actually your own primordial awareness. It is the mind of all the Buddhas. All the Buddhas are complete within this mind. This is actually also mentioned in the Serkangma, the Golden Temple prayer that we add to the Lama Chöpa practice. It's very important to read the Serkangma when we practice the Lama Chöpa practice, because a Lama Chöpa practice without the Serkangma, I guess, is like tsampa without butter. We have to practice it, because we have to recite it, because it shows us this nature of the goddess, which is our non-dual mind, our own mindfulness. So when you recognize the non-dual mind, then it is like your mind becomes like hot water, and naturally all thoughts and afflictions will just melt away in that water as they arise. And then you will actually recognize the practice of vipassana, which is the special insight into the nature of the mind. During vipassana, you see what has already been there, but what you have not seen before. And what have you seen when you see vipassana? You see that clear nature of the mind that is free of that duality of self and other. And once you have seen it, you must habituate it. In the new tantric system, we speak about 4 yogas, the 4 yogas of Mahamudra. The first one is called single-pointedness. So here you first develop a state of non-distraction that remains continuously day and night. The second one is called freedom from elaboration. So here, in the next stage, your mind is already undistracted, and so therefore you purify all karmic imprints or habitual tendencies that were previously created by the conceptual mind. And then the third stage is the stage of one taste. And so then you realize that samsara and nirvana really are actually one within the space-like nature of the mind. And then the fourth stage is called non-meditation. So at this stage, meditation becomes effortless. There's no effort entailed in meditation. But until then, we have to make an effort and be diligent in meditation practice. In particular, until we reach the highest level of single-pointedness, we need to make an effort. So in that verse, it says, we see it, but we do not habituate it, but we remain lost in negative activities. And so even though we have seen it, if we are lost in negative activities and we follow our habitual tendencies, then we will still continue to experience suffering as a result, even though we have seen the nature of the mind. So actually within these verses of Tara, everything that is important on the ultimate truth is really contained. There's nothing not contained. And I'm just giving you a brief outline. Also, Garchen Rinpoche will teach you more on that. You also learn a lot from His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. But so whenever you meditate, you actually benefit, great benefit arises. So meditation, the experience is key. And also actually everything is also contained in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. And ultimately everything is condensed into just one, and that is mindfulness. If you have mindfulness, then all afflictive emotions, all thoughts can be overcome. Milarepa had said that first you have to decide upon the view as it is explained in the scriptures. And then secondly, you have to, your practice has to become imbued with an actual experience. So you have to actually experience Mahamudra. When you experience Mahamudra, you come to a certainty where you know that this is it and know it. And then you have realized the root of all phenomena. There is no more question in your mind. Even if Guru Rinpoche himself were to come, you would have no question to him. You have no more doubts in your mind. You have recognized the nature of the mind without any doubts. And so this is just my own personal experience that I'm sharing. This is how it has appeared to myself. But in order to realize this, you have to be mindful. If you're not always mindful, then it will be very difficult. Then very quickly the mind solidifies again. So when this solidification is broken down and when it melts, then that mind that remains is the mind of Mahamudra, the non-dual mind. So this term, this word Mahamudra, in Tibetan it's Chakya Chembo, so Chakya is the mudra. And Chak here refers to the meaning of emptiness, or the space-like nature, the space-like empty nature of the mind. And then Gya of Chakya is like this endless space, so the empty space. In the Dzogchen tradition, so Dzogchen, this term means completion. And so all phenomena of samsara and nirvana are complete within this mind. All of the Buddha Dharma is complete within this mind. So everything is complete within the mind, therefore it is called Dzogchen. Or if one practices the Madhyamaka, the middle way teaches not to grasp at anything whatsoever. When there is not a single thought, no grasping at either side, then, and the mind abides clear, then you will not be mistaken. And so the quality of such practice is that even if a thought or a certain feeling arises, you will have an ability to overcome it, to let it go, just like a wave on water. And such a practitioner is called a yogi. So a yogi in Tibetan is a naljoba, And that means Nalva refers to the innate natural state. So it is someone who has attained the innate, who dwells within the innate mind itself, someone who has understood that. So a yogi is someone who can say, I am dwelling in this innate natural state. So this, Dharma friends, is just my brief account on that. So again, personally, I find that recognizing this view, deciding upon this view, knowing this, is very beneficial when it comes to overcoming suffering right now, the suffering you experience right now. Also, understand that the mind cannot die and it is not born. There was actually one time my disciple who asked me a question, and they asked, where exactly is the center of space? And I was thinking to myself, actually center doesn't have a space. The space doesn't have a center. So space is without center and boundary, but then I had to give an answer to that person. Where is the center of space? So then I said to that person, so if space had a center, then it would be wherever your head is, right above your head. And that is really in a way true, because when someone has realized the nature of the mind, that wherever you are, this nature of the mind is the center, you can say is the center of samsara and nirvana, because there is nothing in samsara and nirvana that's not contained within it. And then lastly, it is important to cultivate devotion to any spiritual master, to any guru. Recognize that that guru's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha. The mind is non-dual primordial wisdom. It is your own mind. And when you think of this guru with devotion, you might start to cry. And these tears are unfabricated, uncontrived tears. And when these tears flow, that is true guru devotion. And then in these moments, this is the moment where your own mind and the guru's mind and the Buddha's mind become one.
인스들이 아마도 양도는 제와 제기요래 되게 제와 체력 탐지를 사제도 버려 제와데 아마의 연구를 되게 소소라는 것들이 아마르베 제와요지 종산들이 탈마타도 니마 걸 그사 걸들이 뭐라는 거야 이 아마자 탑성 얘네들이 다음 아마트네 베메 기용거리 아마 계좌가 되는 거들 너무 쪽 너무 어떻게 가면도 못 가야 돼 다디 가면 돌아오나 속차 조마 접차만 보고 싸우요래 대통령 사제 들발라지리 탑지 아마 진거 그래 그리고 소야들이 아마 이렇게 깨끗해서 맞춰야 다들 진정을 봐요데 아마 까지 치고 이라고 참이 아마 진들이 다 사촉심지 자와들이 톡고요래 이 참아 아마 잡을링 아마 탑지 다시 될래셔인데
Also, it's a very special day today. It's a Mother's Day, and so we remember the kindness of our mothers on those days. So, who is the ultimate mother? Tara is the mother of all of samsara and nirvana, and then we have our own personal mothers. And on this day, we should remember our mother's kindness. First, the mother has given us a precious human body among the 6 realms of samsara. And also, when we think of our mothers, love arises. And love is the cause of enlightenment and happiness in all future lifetimes. So that love comes really through our mothers. And I myself love my mother very much. When I was once released from prison, I went to see my mother, and I was walking for 9 days. There were no cars there at that time. And then I met my mother again. And still, when I remember my mother, tears come to my eyes. And as a root of virtue, in dedication of my mother, I have planted a tree here. I've planted a peach tree. And so why a peach tree? Because when those fruit grow, then many animals, many little animals like ants and so on, they can all eat, they can all be nourished through that tree. Millions of beings can be nourished through that tree. So that tree really becomes a Buddha emanation. And I remember my mother in this way. And even when I would try to talk about my mother, I wouldn't even express it all in words. But when I think of her, tears come to mind. So this is why I'm mentioning in this. We have to remember the kindness of our mothers on this special day, because she really is the root of our bodhicitta to arise. Through this love that we have for our mothers, bodhicitta arises. So I'm saying that she dialect to all the mothers in the world.
갑자기 아마 맞아요. 직장 매바디 코 토방이거든. 제 상징하고 주는 거 때문에 하고는 이 아마 자치고 제가 자치로 또 못하라. 이 상징이 도지지게 돼. 만남 가다 잠 셈지 담체서 대 양당도 세면 되게 쳐보여래. 뭐 도망 아마 제요래. 저 때문에 제요래. 그래서 이렇게 쳐보여래.
And so the Buddha, with the eyes of wisdom, taught that actually all sentient beings in the three realms of existence have been our mothers, because we have had mothers since beginningless times. And when you understand that, then your love becomes vast. So the Buddha, with his compassionate, skillful means, therefore taught that all sentient beings really are our mothers. It's very important to remember this again and again. For example, all these little ants, these little insects, they have all been our mothers. They truly have been our mothers. So it's very important to remember that.
Thank you.
So this concludes the teaching portion of the Tara Blessing Retreat for Garchen Rinpoche, and on behalf of Garchen Institute and everyone watching online, we'd like to make this offering to Garchen Rinpoche to thank him for his profound and illuminating and heart-opening teachings, and we're always supremely grateful for all of your generosity with us. It's truly extraordinary. Thank you so much. And we also want to thank Khenpo Samdup for visiting here and bringing all of his different Sangha groups together from all over the world. And it's been a really wonderful time to come together and practice and receive all of the Tara blessings. And thank you for your teachings that you've given on Tara here, Khenpo. And we also want to thank Khenpo Tenzin for his really beautiful teaching on the four dharmas of Gampopa. And we want to thank Lama Abu for leading us in the Tara practices each morning, and Ani Gyamso and Ani Samten for all of your support and practice. And we want to thank Ani Samten for her excellent care of Garchen Rinpoche. So now we're ready for lunch, and please everyone plan to come back this afternoon for the Long Life Mandala offering to Garchen Rinpoche, and I understand we're going to have some songs offered from wonderful Sangha members here. So we will gather again together at 3 o'clock. Thank you. And please wait, everyone, for some more announcements after Rinpoche leaves. Thank you.